2 or 3 miles north of Bushnell. We just looked like was sitting there. I wonder if the sheriff called and asked him.
There's always a train.
Do they?
Whatever side of the
23.
railroad you're on, if you need to be the other side, there's a train.
Some time ago, it said 30 some was going through there.
Kate's supposed to be talking to you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, school teacher. What have you got?
Well,
What have you got to say for the
we just always start off by having you introduce yourself and tell when you were born,
Well,
so we know how you go.
Before we do that, we want to introduce our agent.
Oh.
The what?
We want to make sure that this we get some rewards out of this, some recognition.
He couldn't come till about 6:30.
No, Carolyn said she'd do it,
If the cut was right.
if the cut's right.
I see.
How about that?
Right.
Okay.
I'm the older of the four, the old timer.
Who you are?
Been around a little bit longer than they have. I have Jim Todd, born September 1. Mother said on Labor Day,
What year?
1926.
He hadn't labored since.
Well, I tried to, and everybody says, no work, you can't work, go home. Charles doing it for me.
All right, who's next?
Okay, I was born May 1928. I'm Donald Todd. I'm a second in command in the family. It's been certainly a pleasure over the years to grow up with all of our family and all of our friends and neighbors. And we've all left the county for a while, the state for a while, and able to return again and live again in retirement. We get to see each other from time to time on occasions such as we're in today. And it's always a pleasure to get together and remember where we came from.
Sis, you better talk.
Well, I'm the rose in the family.
Oh,
What does that mean?
There's always thorns,
means you can
thorns
cook
where
good
there's,
turnips.
always thorns where there's a rose.
Let's get a clarification on this.
And I was born in 1931, June 16th, and I've had a wonderful life. And we just had a lot of fun growing up. We didn't know we were so poor until we got grown.
Poor folks who didn't know
We
it.
didn't have much. But we had a lot of love in our home, and we were loved, and we were taken to church and raised in a Christian home, and that's more precious than all the money. And this is the little one.
The kid
What
in the
is your
family.
name? You never said your name.
Oh, I'm Eloise Todd Hart.
Don't forget Fanny.
Now, that
By all
wasn't
means.
necessary.
Oh, is that another child we didn't know about?
She's not going to comment.
I'm Charles, the youngest, and you can tell how puny I am because they got all the food. I was born in May 26, 1943.
Nobody's that young.
Always had a problem telling what's right.
33, I meant to say. And I had a very good life. I have lots to be thankful for. A fine sister and 2 fine brothers. And mother raised us and dad raised us and did a terrific job. And my daughter once told me, said, "Daddy, you're poor, aren't you?" I said, "No, I wasn't poor. Everybody was poor. I didn't know I was poor." So, but anyway, we are well off today, and thank God for that.
Yes.
Well, what did your dad do for a living?
He
was diversified.
And what was his name?
James Williams, same as big brothers over there.
Yeah.
And he had
By the
another-
way, his name isn't Jimmy, it's Junior to me.
All the family's that.
Yeah. So, but our dad was not a real young man. He was 19, no, what was
He's 54 years old when he married our mother.
it? Yeah.
And she was 18.
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
She was 18.
Actually,
He
she was
54.
She was the same age as kids in his first family.
Yeah.
And
Had
he
a,
just,
had a
She
son
was-
younger than she.
She was younger than all of them except the baby child who was 13.
Yeah.
Yes.
His first family. And we just never, our half brothers and sisters, we always called aunts and uncles
Yes.
until we were probably almost grown.
Yes.
We thought they were aunts and uncles. And
because of the age differential.
yeah.
And their kids wanted to call Charles Uncle Charlie, and it always made him so mad. They picked on him, called him Uncle Charles.
Yeah, they still do occasionally.
Yeah. And they'd get you in a crowd and they would say uncle and aunt.
And what was your mom's name?
Velma Connell Todd.
And did she work?
She
Yes,
worked
she
in the
did.
sewing room
WPA.
in Depression days at Webster.
She was some type of nurse too, wasn't she?
She worked as a home nurse.
Home nurse
aide.
or something at one time.
She cared for the bedridden and so forth for a while, and cooked meals for them too.
She was a good cook. She could
Yes.
make biscuits.
Yeah.
Get in that big old pan and stir up that old flour and mix it, and
Make those little tiny biscuits.
yeah, you'd have to eat 3 or 4 of them there.
Pearl Millhouse could make the biggest.
Yeah, but not the best.
biscuits, I
Now,
tell you
Pearl
Not
what.
the best.
Pearl was our half sister, and she had 8
Yeah.
children. Is it 8?
Well,
8 or 9.
At last count, it was about that
probably
many.
had more than that, but Georgia had to go to work on a railroad in Georgia.
And she used to make big biscuits, and she'd make bukus
Fill them full of orange marmalade.
or
Good
syrup.
stuff.
We'd stick our thumb in the biscuit, pour syrup in there, and fill it full of syrup, and then run to the woods to play in the trees. And they were always afraid we were going to get snake bit, but I think the snakes were more afraid of us.
They knew us by name. We did a lot of swimming in those days too.
Oh yeah, we'd go down to the little dam, and
Yes.
go swimming.
Now, where was this at that you did all that?
Up at Centerville, which is now the mine pits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pumps all right, the mine's all right. In front of the Womble house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Out in the pasture there.
Yeah.
What other foods did you eat? What kinds of foods did you eat?
Chicken. I can remember hearing Daddy saying, I repeat that a lot. If we ever get through with this depression, I'll never eat another chicken as long as I live. But I had a chicken pen out back, and we had chicken. That was more than a lot of other people had.
They raised a hog though, because you remember they had.
Oh, we used to have an old smokehouse right out here.
Smokehouse and hog.
That thing was full of meat.
And we would slip in and cut a piece of the ham that was smoking after it had smoked for a while, and eat the ham.
That old meat was
They
just-
call that jerky today.
Yeah.
We call it food. We call it food.
Cut the rind off of it.
It's a wonder you didn't get sick.
And
Daddy
once
would kill in the fall when it got cold, the weather cooled off. He generally would kill about 8 hogs and hang them in the smokehouse, cut them up and smoke them. Mother would make sausage. Eloise always wanted the chitlins.
I didn't know what they were.
Mother got tired of fixing chitlins for her, and she got one day she insisted that Eloise help her. That's the last time Eloise ever ate chitlins.
Then when I found out what lots really were,
Yeah.
I thought they were delicious. They were so nice and spongy, and then I found out what it was, and I didn't eat that.
Well, they made lard too and put it in a big cans, you
And,
know.
and put the sausage down in
Yeah,
there.
down in real greasy.
Cracklins.
Daddy used to say they kept everything about a hog but the squeal.
Yeah.
And we used to take the bladder and blow it up.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that bladder was something else. You blow that thing up and
Put
then
the 4
bounce it
balls.
up and down.
That was our football.
That was the first basketball we ever had.
We would blow it up with a palm crystal stick.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was hollow. And then we'd throw it around, and it'd get so sticky, that dirt would stick to it. Oh, that
Well, you had to let it dry a little bit.
Then we'd feed to the dogs.
Well, the dog
The
would
dog would get our.
we had
Our
the
basketball.
we had the first pigskin football.
Yep, sure did. The original.
Did you make syrup?
fight over the hog bladder.
Daddy made
Yeah.
syrup right out here. Yeah, he had big. I guess we never really came it out of the field.
Strip it.
Yeah.
Strip the limbs off of it. But we always managed to have transportation most of the time, automobiles some type. Had the old
mule
whipping
and wagon most of the
Yeah,
time.
well,
Yeah.
we did that route too. Yeah, well, that's everybody else.
Yeah.
The,
I remember the one old car we had, Charles kept sticking a screwdriver.
oh no, that wasn't me.
in-
You run the battery down in that old Model A.
He would stick a screwdriver in the cigarette lighter and it'd spark.
That wasn't a cigarette lighter, dear. That was that old Model A had a dash light on
Yeah.
it. You could turn and
Yeah.
twist, you know. And Eloise took the bulb out of it and she cut that old screwdriver in there and it kept
And
running
Shorting
the
out.
battery down.
Yeah.
he got in bad trouble.
What kind of trouble?
Well, I probably got a spanking on account of it.
Peach tree out
You
back
know-
didn't have near as many limbs as it did there too before.
Hey, Lord. No.
But Charles could work that baby act very efficiently.
Oh, shoot.
Fast
These two brothers of mine, I'm going to tell you, we had a big old fireplace in that old house we had. When you got up in the morning, you didn't know where to run to the kitchen or the fireplace when it was cold weather because the kitchen most likely was a warmer spot in the house. These two used to go out and chop the wood for the heater and the fireplace and what have you, and walk to the house and send me back out there to tote the wood.
Well, he was the youngest member of the family. He couldn't swing an axe or saw, so he could carry the wood. Someone had to be the slave, you know. Somebody had to pay the price.
And my sister used to put sand on my watermelon for salt. So,
I fed him a citron.
that's all right.
It was in a tree right out here in
That's
the
all right. I
yard.
gave her a pan of peanuts one time too.
That's the time you ripped your new white shirt when you got those peanuts out of Mr. Rayler's field.
No,
wasn't
no,
it?
no. That's when
No, he was very, very bad.
What was it?
I asked him if he'd get me some peanuts, and he kept saying, no, if you want them, go get them yourself. So finally he decided he'd go get them. And I think Billy Powell was with him. He was a kid down the road. And they got this pan they found outside. And
Brought it
and
home.
filled it full of peanuts. And he handed it in and says, here's your old peanuts. And I went,
grabbed a handful of them and slung it like that. Daddy got tickled. He couldn't whip me.
I never asked him to get me a peanut.
Not to this day, she won't let me get any peanuts. I say, sis, you want me to get you some peanuts? No, thank you.
Not today. Not today.
What other chores did you have?
To get up early in the morning and that old wood stove. I think Dawn and I rotated with it. We had to get up and had to fire that wooden stove off so Mother could fix breakfast for us. That was always the first job in the morning. You'd hear him holler from the bedroom.
Well, that was summertime, but in the wintertime, you had to thaw the water out, the ice out of the pump. You had a bucket of water. Take some hot water out there and pour it in to melt the ice so you get water to cook with. Mother would always want a pan of water the night before because if it was cold, it was going to freeze up.
Yeah.
And she didn't have water to cook breakfast with. So.
Only time these two took a bath when Mama washed clothes.
Yeah. That was
Then they
all
left the old wash tub out on the porch for the sun to heat the water up a little bit.
warm it up. And then Charles had a bath.
We had the
1,
same-
2, 3, 4.
We had the same trouble. By the time we got in, it was pretty warm.
And dirty too.
And some of that homemade soap worked out real well.
That old lye soap would eat you clean pretty good.
I'll tell you, it'd clean you right up.
In Milne wash days, we'd have to scrub the porches with those old
Suds.
suds
Yeah.
and those corn shuck.
Yeah.
Corn syrup.
Yeah.
Scrub rock.
Scrub on.
Yeah.
But one time, there was a black lady that stayed with us when Daddy, I guess, was out in the field and Mama was at work. Anyway, this black lady,
Ruby.
Ruby, she stayed with us. Poor lady, she was put in an insane asylum after she.
That old woman poked me at the broomstick one time. I ran away from him, hid under the bed. That wasn't Aunt Minnie. What was her name?
Aunt Minnie,
Yeah.
she was another black
But
lady.
anyway,
Actually, she was sold in slavery 4 different times. You can
And
remember
many
having been
was,
sold
yeah.
in slavery 4 different times.
But that Miss Ruby,
Didn't know how old she was or really her name.
yeah. Miss
But-
Ruby sent Donald after a bucket of water. he came back to the house with a half a bucket. I remember that. She poured that water out and said, "Boy, you go get me
Fill it
a
up."
bucket of water."
Actually, we thought we were all just normal. She was all right for about 10 years. I remember when I believe it was Charles and Eloise painted the kitchen one with charcoal.
No, that wasn't Charles and Eloise.
Somebody painted
That
the
was
kitchen.
you two.
No!
Mama had just put wallpaper all over the living room. I remember it was blue. And you two we're going to make it pretty. Got charcoal, black charcoal out of the fireplace. Stood on the piano and drew pictures all over where as far as they could reach.
She didn't appreciate that.
Of course, that old switch tree didn't have many limbs left on it. But I remember Dad always take a little nap in the afternoon. After lunch, he'd always take a little nap. We'd crawl up in the old house there and drop corn.
Spit.
Something on him. Something on him.
Eloise would spit down on him.
And his favorite saying, "Them dang rats up there."
No, his favorite saying was, "Ding, dang it all, Eloise, you know who I'm talking to."
Yeah, we thought it was funny then. You know, it's pretty serious today.
Didn't call the roll.
You know, dang it all, you know who I want to answer.
I never heard Dad use a curse word, but he said, "Dang it all, buddy, you better be on the way."
That was the final statement. He had completed his conversation.
I don't think Daddy ever whipped me. I never remember getting a whip.
Well, I can remember. I remember stopping out in the field and taking a plow line off the mule, whipping me with it.
I remember
I was
Mama,
planting corn for him and dropping it, and I was running along, dropping one about every 3 foot, and he caught me at it. The field was half planted for it.
I remember Mama was going to give me a whipping, and I ran from her. It's the only time I ever ran from her. I ran from her to the field where Daddy was.
Yeah, and he helped.
And Daddy said, "Sister, what are you doing?" And here come Mama right behind me. He didn't protect me at all.
On need to know basis, he didn't need to know, did he?
I think I got about 2 whippings from him, but that's about it. I knew when he said something, I better move. But now Mama, I think she whipped me every day.
What was your mule's name?
Well, we had an old blind mule now. You would not believe.
Yeah,
old
but tell
blind.
about how that little mule got here, that mule and the other mule.
What mule was that?
They came from Lake Wales.
Dad went down to Bach Tower. You know, our half-brother Ollie.
No, I wasn't aware where they came from.
Our half-brother Ollie was superintendent of Mountain Lake Corporation. They had a team of mules, and Dad needed a good mule or two, you know.
Pete and Doc.
And he rode the train to West Lake Wales and got off and walked into Bach Tower, bought the mules, rode one and led the other one home.
Is that how he got them?
Down the railroad track.
I
Down the railroad
wasn't sure how he got him.
Yeah.
Well,
But
he
that old
thought-
blind mule, we used to get on that mule and 4 or 5 of us riding at
Yeah.
one time.
No saddle, we just pull the mule's mane to go get your way.
He thought nothing of getting up early in the morning and walking to Oxford and buying a mule or a cow, milk cow, and walking back down here from Oxford. That was just
Bayless mules, huh?
in the northeast corner of the intersection there.
Didn't Uncle Donald try and ride the mule one time?
Oh, he tried to.
He was Roy
had a-
Rogers.
Used to have a big old grapefruit tree right back here. One day Daddy brought the old mule in from the field with the harness and all still on the mule and tied it up to the grapefruit tree and fed the mule. Donald had a little cap pistol or something. And he got on that mule and he was going to ride that mule. He
Boy,
started
Roger.
popping that camp pistol and that old mule bucked and he snorted and he threw all the harness off.
Went crazy.
And Daddy come out and we told him a bee stung him.
The mule.
I remember that one big mule we had. I learned it from you 3 to crawl under the mule's stomach.
Yeah.
That was such a thrill. Crawl
Yeah,
under
crawl
the
under
mule's
it.
stomach.
Yeah.
And but if you hit the mule, they kept saying it would kick you. Well, I hit the mule and I was carrying a big ball and it kicked the ball out of my arms and busted it. And I never crawled under the mule again.
You know, the rubber balls you ever owned at that time.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
Started in Center Hill. I went to the 9 grades over there, and then Bushnell after that.
Then we all had to go to Bush.
Yeah, well, I went through 9 grades in Center Hill and graduated Bushnell High School.
I left Bush and Center Hill in the 7th grade because Daddy said he didn't want 2 children in one school and 2 in another.
Yeah.
So Charles and I had to go early. And then Charles was a trader and went to Webster.
No,
I
no, but see,
graduated.
I started out in Center Hill. And then Center Hill, believe it or not, with so many kids in the school in Center Hill, I had to transfer to Webster.
Actually, we were in the Webster
Actually, he was
district.
just shifting
Yeah.
around
The
from
highway
school.
So
It was so
then I
bad.
went to, after that, I went to Bushnell, I believe. Yeah. And then I went back to Webster.
Yeah, the road here
Is a district, yeah.
is a district, and we were in the Webster district.
Yeah.
And
We're still in the Webster Fire District.
when I started playing football in the 10th grade over there, Red Price was a coach, and he had always come to me before school started and says, "Why don't you transfer to Webster so you can play football for me? You're in the Webster district." And he kept telling me he was going to go over and see the school superintendent and make me transfer to Webster. But we talked about that a while, and of course he did most of the talking, I did the listening.
But when we were in elementary school in Center Hill, we used to have to carry milk to school to pay for lunch.
Yeah. Other people did the same thing. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of our older half-sisters ran the lunchroom,
Yeah.
and she looked after us.
Well, who was it? Which one of you people picked up a bag of sugar and carried it?
Me.
lunch?
Me. Had a brown bag, and I was in a hurry, and I went out, I grabbed that brown bag. Got to school, I had a bag of sugar.
Came noon time and opened that bag of sugar, and
I tell you what,
there we were.
We used to take biscuits to school when we had light bread, loaf bread. Man, I'd eat in front of everybody. When I had a biscuit, I'd eat over there sometime.
And it was wrapped in newspaper.
Well, no, we fought over who was going to wrap it in the
Yeah,
light
there
bread
was one
wrapper.
bread wrapper a week.
Yeah.
Whoever get it. But when we carried milk to school, we got halfway up to the highway one morning, and we found out Mama had poured the milk in that 2-quart blue ball jar
Yeah.
and left the rubber ring in it, and we thought that was horrible. We were embarrassed to take that to school. So we found a stick and picked it up and fished out that rubber ring and went on to school.
Didn't hurt anybody.
As far as you know.
Where did you go to church?
We did in Center Hill a little bit, but not a great deal. We had always walked to Mount Zion over here. Our parents generally would just come to church. They'd give us all a penny apiece.
Yeah.
At that time, they took up a collection in Sunday school for Sunday school material, and she'd give each one of us a penny, and we'd go to Mount Zion Sunday School.
Actually, we went to First Baptist Church in Center Hill and when we lived in town, and then we moved out to the old Hewitt house. We were
Where
still
Charles,
Yeah.
Charles was
Right.
born.
we were still going to Center Hill, but we moved here, Mount Zion, just across the field, and that was just being built at the time, and congregation being established. And so we started going there, and that's where we went to.
When we were we lived in Center Hill in that 2-story house.
Yes,
Where you were born.
Yeah, and they made a Methodist church out of it.
yes. Which is now closed down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Closed down about a year ago.
God,
But the altar rail in that church was the staircase,
Yes.
The old banister.
banisters in the house, and the front door is the starburst, the door that was on the
Yes.
front house.
Original house.
So it's
They'd
quite,
always leave that door open so you could see it when you passed by. Pull the screen back so you could
Yeah.
see the door.
Now, before we start talking about when you got older, starting with Uncle Jimmy, the 3 others, tell a story that you remember about Uncle Jimmy.
I tell you one about Uncle Donald and Uncle Jimmy and I. Donald came home from the service one
That's
time.
what I was saving to tell.
We had an old double-barrel shotgun, Daddy's old double-barrel shotgun, and it was in the corner of the bedroom.
We were all
We were sleeping so peaceful.
I was stationed in Mobile. Let's build up to this
Yeah.
thing. I was stationed over in Mobile, and I was coming home the weekend. And I said, "Well, next weekend's 4th of July, and we'll be off, and I'll come home on Friday morning, Saturday morning, whichever, and we'll go hunting, squirrel hunting." So I walked in about 4 o'clock
In the morning.
in the morning, and there's Charles and Jimmy in bed, sound asleep. I eased back in, got that old shotgun up, checked it, make sure it wasn't loaded. Eased it back together again, and walked in there and reached over and hit both of them with that shotgun. Give me your money, guys! The little old window wasn't that wide.
No.
They both went out the window at the same time.
No. I tried to go out the window and Junior kept pulling me back. But the main thing was that you poked him first.
Yeah.
I had a head start.
That's right. He
He
reached
reached
over.
over and got my hand. He put on the barrel of the shotgun. And then both of us tried to go out the window and he kept pulling me back.
And then I couldn't get back in the house. They didn't know that was me.
One of our other tricks that was so mean that I think about every once in a while how awful it was. But Daddy depended on us to pick cotton for him. He'd always had 7 or 8, 10 acres of cotton, and between here and the hold-up pen down, they had a small block one year. That wasn't but about 3 or 4 acres of it. Kept wondering why we never got through picking on them. Every afternoon we were supposed to get our bags, croaker bags, go down, we got to have them school, go pick that cotton. Well, we learned we could go to the cotton pile and fill our bags with about 1/4 to half full of cotton and go down there and play. Came home, we always had some cotton. Never did get that cotton.
Well, that was Eloise got me into that. She taught me to go and buy the cotton barn and get some cotton, fill it in the bag,
Fill it
go
up on
down
the way
there,
down.
play in the field for about an hour or two, come dragging it back to the house. Daddy is so proud of us. We picked all that cotton. 2 or 3 days later, we found out we didn't pick that cotton. And I think that was the second time he whipped me. She got away with it.
Oh, no, I probably did.
Dad used to make chairs and furniture out of grapevines, and he was good at it. He'd go down to the woods and cut a vine, and somebody coming along wanted a rocking chair or whatever they wanted, and he'd make it for them.
He was
He
didn't
was
think
crafty.
to make money for grocers.
He was crafty.
Yeah.
Well, he used to haul wood to the quarters down there.
Oh yeah,
Well, Dawn and I did most
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
Well, he had an old Model A.
Dollar a load.
Yeah.
We used mule
And,
wagon for years.
Well, he finally graduated.
Yeah.
Got a Model A, I think. But anyway, he and I was coming through those woods one time and had a load of wood on the back of that old trailer.
John, go down
And
the chair.
Daddy made a comment, "Man, this old thing is pulling this load of wood real good." Turned around and looked back at him. I said, "Daddy, your trailer's way back down there."
We got to put the pin in that rascal.
That thing only jumped off.
I remember he came up one time with a load of wood. He got down off that load of wood, and he says, "There's something biting me." He started dancing around, and then he started pulling off his pants. And I was sitting out there just giggling. It was real funny. And he turned around.
Well, I hate to go ahead.
He turned around and saw me as he pulled down his long johns, and he said, "Dang it, Eloise, get out of here!"
Got a problem. You saying this is a man's problem? Get out of here. Let me take care of it.
It was funny to
What
me.
about the time Junior found something in his pants? He whipped his pants off.
Yeah.
That's what Big Perry had dragged down into this thing too. I guess been married a short time.
I thought he was hollering for Mama. I got a rat in my pants. Had his old
Turned out to be a t-shirt.
I'd roll that thing up and put it in the crotch of my trousers. I put it on. And that roll in there, and man, it scared me to death.
Hollering, "I got a rat, I got a rat."
Thought there never would be any kids back then.
It take the longest time.
Didn't take him long time.
Oh, it is. I remember when Charles brought home the 7-year itch to the rest of us.
Going to Webster.
No, it was in Center Hill.
You know where he first detected it?
At the Mount Zion Baptist Church.
It had a tent revival going. Preacher Rice. No, well, Rice was the chief usher, I think. He wasn't a preacher. I think Mears the one that's preaching. But the old Rice, he had a goatee, looked like a goat. And he'd always wanted the kids to sit on the front row. Well, Charles was one of the little kids that set him on the front row. And Charles scratched. It looked like a monkey. He scratched and scratched and embarrassed Mama to death. I think she finally got up and drug him out and brought him home. Found out he had a 7-year itch.
7 years.
And we all had to get that old medicine of it.
You got
Oh, yellow gold
It
medicine.
was a sulfur bath.
Yeah,
Sulfur bath.
And I remember I got so upset because you three got to get in the tub first and
Yeah.
I had to be last.
Yeah.
You three, you couldn't wipe it off.
Yeah.
It had to dry. You
Yeah.
three got to run around on the outside of the house and play,
Yeah.
and I couldn't go with you.
Got that stuff in school. I don't know what kind of fungus it was, but they called it
I don't know what
7-year
it was.
itch. That you scratch it, lasts for 7 years. If you didn't get it treated.
Well, that was about like they had the sore eyes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
It was
always
something
got
about that
them.
sore eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was either. Dirt, I guess.
Well, what'd you do when you got sick? If you got a cold or something?
You got castor oil.
Castor oil.
Lord, I tell Mama, Mama would say, Charles, go out there and get me an orange off that tree. And I knew what she wanted me to do. She was
Yeah, but
gonna
let me
give me
tell
a big old dose of castor oil and chase it with an orange.
Yeah, but let me tell you, that castor oil wasn't as bad as that old dry stuff they used to give you. You
Black
choked it
draw.
up trying to
Black
swallow it.
draw.
that
Oh,
was
Lord.
terrible. It
Well,
was-
that was a spring tonic.
Mm.
That was a spring
But-
tonic of
It was a
choice.
laxative.
if you
Yeah.
coughed, you got a grapefruit with baking soda.
Oh, well,
Grapefruit
yeah,
juice
you,
with baking soda.
Yeah.
That was Daddy's
Remedy.
His remedy, and that stuff was pretty good.
That
They're
grapefruit tree right in the backyard didn't have far to travel.
And
to
we
get
all-
they're still using that treatment some today with baking soda
Baking soda and grapefruit.
and grapefruit juice. It foamed, boy, it fizz
Come
up.
out your nose.
Oh man,
Yeah.
you tried to drink it before it all foamed out of the glass. But if you ever got cranky and grouchy and what have you, Mama figured you need a laxative, so she'd give you something.
Every spring we got calamine for the worms.
It was a herb, some kind of herbs all ground up called black dog.
Yeah, that's right.
They get sick with sick.
They get
Yeah.
grouchy and cranky, but give them a laxative.
That's right.
Yeah. But in the, when the grapefruit, when we had no grapefruit, and you got a cough, you got a,
Turpentine?
no, you got a teaspoon of sugar with some kerosene on it.
Kerosene?
Kerosene, yeah.
I thought it was turpentine
No,
or
it was
something.
kerosene.
It was
You got
kerosene.
You got turpentine with castor oil.
Yeah. You ever stuck a nail in your foot, that's all they poured on you was kerosene or something.
Yeah.
Nowadays they take you to give you all kinds of treatment, I guess.
We had a trot line once, and got a bunch of catfish. Brought them up in a croaker bag and threw them on the back porch. And Charles or Donald one stepped on them.
I did.
And
In a croaker bag, and I didn't know. I thought they'd all been dumped.
he
I
almost
saw
died.
the old bag, and
Almost died of blood poison to stepping on that old thorn off of one of those catfish
well,
heads.
I thought the bag had been dumped, and I was reaching over to get another one, to clean him, and I stepped on the right heel of my foot. Went in my foot, and of course caused problems. But the old family doctors used to come to us. We didn't go to them, and finally a hospital opened in Bushnell. But medication was few and far between back in those
Well, I
days.
guess we was all born at home, weren't we? Were we
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, we were
Oh, I'm
all-
sure.
Yeah, we
Sure.
were.
Midwife,
Yeah.
whatever.
Doctor came out.
Well, the doctor, when I was born, told Daddy he couldn't save both, the baby and his wife. He had to make a choice. So he said, save my wife, I have other children.
Lord help us.
You rolled over and said, let me have a vote here. Let me vote on this thing too. Yeah,
No,
let's get a three-split split.
Grandma Condell picked me up and she
Yeah.
started rubbing me
Yeah.
and I started crying.
And they named her after,
That's where the word fanny came from.
I looked on the birth certificate though for hers. I got a birth certificate some years ago, and it was really, the name was Frances, but they called her Fanny,
Yeah.
Fanny for short.
That was Grandma, yeah.
Yeah, that was her name, Frances.
Lord,
You
I,
didn't get my birth certificate
I remember
because
running away from Grandma one time. And that old woman chased me for I don't know how far. Finally
Well,
she
she's
caught
so short-legged, she couldn't have chased you very long.
She did. And so helped me, she pulled up an oak tree 40 foot tall.
And wore it out.
Boy, every step I took, she'd hit me.
No, it had that snuff in that apron.
Oh, goodness, don't say anything about that, because I ran through the house one time and kicked that old syrup can and snuffed and everything.
How did you celebrate
That's when you
holidays?
tried some one time, didn't you? It came out of years.
We didn't have holidays when we were kids. Those were work days too.
For Christmas, we got
Very little,
an apple,
very little.
an
Yeah.
apple and banana, I remember.
Our-
And Mom and Aunt Cleo ordered a bucket of candy from Sears and Roebuck, and it was shared.
Yeah.
What old candy? I remember that candy. That was good candy.
And our
Hard
vacation was to go up Lake Pansofsky and spend a week up there in June. The shell crackers were in bluegills.
With about
Yeah.
15 people in
Yeah,
one little
yeah,
cabin.
yeah. We'd rent a cabin and the whole family, one little old one-bedroom cabin.
Remember one time we stayed up there in a
Yeah.
cabin and had bed bugs or something.
Yeah.
The wall woke up and scratched.
Yeah, they'd build a fire in the tent to keep the mosquitoes out. And of course, afraid to go to sleep. The job of we'd go up to Pansofsky like you're saying, and the job of the boys was to push the boat off the sandbars in the middle of the lake in Pansofsky. People talk about the good old days and how things have changed, and used to be able to go all over to Pansofsky and fish and so forth, but didn't in those days either, because our job was to push the boat off the sandbars
In the
at
canal.
middle well, the lake itself.
Yeah.
The lake itself.
Well, you didn't have an outboard motor.
Yeah, we were the
I
outboard
remember-
motor.
Yeah, I remember. Used to pay somebody $1 or something, and they'd tow you across
Yeah.
the lake. I think
Yeah.
it might not have been $1. I don't know, but then they'd come back whenever
Pick
you
up,
told
bring
them
you
to
back.
pick you up and take
I
you back.
remember,
But-
that's the only place I ever remember being so hungry in my life, Pansofsky. Because you couldn't eat until they caught fish
Yeah, yeah.
and cleaned them.
Didn't take wieners
Oh,
those days.
government, they're talking about
Yeah.
catching fish. Let me tell you something. That big brother of mine, we went fishing over Gum Slough one time, and who was it? Nell's grandpa Mullins.
Mullins was with us.
We didn't catch any fish. Anyway, Mr. Mullins, we caught some mudfish. And Mr. Mullins said, well, I can cook these things, nobody can tell the difference. And he did, they were good.
Yeah.
I guess because we was hungry, I don't know.
Well, he soaked them all night in a real salty brown water, and it took the mud flavor out of
Yeah.
it. And we were so hungry, man, that was the best fish. I don't think we got but one big one. We didn't. He didn't cook the little ones.
Well, he cut them up or something.
Cut
It
'em,
wasn't that muddy
yeah.
tasting, whatever.
But filleted them out, and that old big one, the bones are so big that you could pick them out. But most of the mudfish got an awful lot of little bones in them. But that old big one, and he soaked that thing in salt water overnight. And as hungry as we were, man, we were in the national forest
Yeah.
over there camping. We'd fished for 2 or 3 days, never caught a fish. They put that trot line out and got some mudfish on it one night, one day.
I remember the time Austin came home on leave one time, went out rabbit hunting. He wanted some rabbit. Didn't find any rabbit. We didn't know that till later on. Yeah. Anyway, he found a couple of possums and fried those things up. And we was eating possum, and he kept saying, grab and growl or something like that. And come find out that we got to eating, it was possum.
Too late. Too late.
And we went to Orlando at Christmas. We used to
Yeah.
go over to
Well,
Grandma's
yeah.
after she moved there.
Buy 5 gallons of gas and go to Orlando.
Well, you had to patch tires too.
Oh,
We
yeah.
always had, I remember we'd always have 2 or 3 flat tires.
Yeah.
But one time Daddy bought that, it was new car to us. That old Chevrolet.
Chevrolet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What is it, 36?
36 Chevrolet.
Yeah.
And it had a hole in the muffler.
Coal.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a muffler. It was a tailpipe where it went up over the rear axle, and it in the bend it rusted out, and it turned right up into the seat.
Well, it's cold and had all the windows up in it. And if you, of course, had no way of knowing that it's broken, but if you ride it with windows down, it probably would not cause any problem. But
We got to Groveland.
Groveland, and we all went crazy.
Well,
Well,
Passing
they
out.
stopped.
Mama couldn't figure out why we was all going to sleep.
Yeah, go to sleep.
She got to
She
find
reached
out
back there
we was about
slapping
to die.
some knees. Oh, wake up!
Well, Donald jumped in that Sloan Creek. I remember, and
I
got
think,
wet a towel Mama had in
yeah.
the car.
Yeah,
And I
brought
woke
that
up
back.
Yeah, I woke up and I was in Daddy's lap,
Yeah.
and he had a wet towel on me, and I had a new sailor dress on.
Messed up your dress.
He messed up my dress. But Darwin complained when he messed up his pants because he jumped in the creek in the
wet
ditch
the
to
towel.
get
He
his
probably
wet
messed up his
towel.
pants while he went in
Yeah.
the creek.
That's why we're in the creek.
Take shortcut here.
But he had just bought that car. Hadn't had it but
Yeah.
about a week.
Yeah.
You're going to take it over and show it off.
That old car I learned to drive on it.
But we were all sick for about 3 days.
Yeah.
They had to get us up and make us walk during the night. Make
Pretty
sure
serious
we were
type
okay.
situation.
Yeah.
Now, tell us how you met your wives or mom, your
But she
husband.
met us.
Uncle Charles, because there's an interesting stories about some letters about you
What about letters?
that you sent to Aunt Sonia.
Oh, no.
Still got evidence, don't you? Carry those things to court too.
Well, I tell you what, I was
You
on
guess
my way
that
to
line.
Japan, and we stopped in Pearl, and I mailed the letters there. But between Pearl and San Diego, I wrote 2 letters, one to Sonia and one to this other girl.
Stewart girl.
Well, whoever she was.
I didn't think you'd ever forget that.
And anyway, I typed the envelope, the address on the envelope. Well, then I put the letters in the wrong envelope. So I sent one to Sonia, one to Shirley. And lo and behold, it hit the fan.
Court turned out.
Now you weren't in
But-
military intelligence, were you?
Well, no.
That wasn't too smart.
I tell Sonia she had my clothes, and my car and everything. I said, well, I got to drop one of them. I better hold on to Sonia.
Now tell your side of it, Sonia.
Tell him how you lay about years later when he saw Shirley again.
She didn't look as good that time.
Oh, that's all right. Good Lord bless me.
When
said
it
that's-
needs calling a friend, huh?
Charles came back and said, that's the ugliest woman I ever saw. She had aged.
That was bad.
Yeah.
Well, I remember George Hart in dating you. George came to visit us one time. Poor fella. Never been to a farm like this before.
Well, to start
We
with,
had an old outdoor John out here someplace. We didn't have indoor plumbing. Oh, we had it, I guess it wasn't. We was in the new house at that time. And George had been here for 2 or 3 days.
no, it just,
He was beginning
came
he was beginning to puff up something terrible. Eloise would not tell him where the bathroom was at. So we had a fence right back there between the outhouse and the yard.
Keep the cows out.
Well, we had a gate there, but poor George, when Mama said, well, George, the outdoor toilet's out yonder way. George didn't even bother to open that gate. He jumped that fence. That fence was 6 foot tall. Poor fellow was 50 pounds lighter when he came back.
George told me after we were married, he said, I couldn't sleep all night. I thought about opening the window. But when he came because on the bus, and he had his 2 front teeth pulled because he had a space, and the dentist says, I can take the space out between your teeth, but you have to pull them and put 2 false teeth. Well, he said, okay, and they were supposed to be back, but they weren't. And George came to Bushland by Greyhound in Charleston, South Carolina. And he got off that bus, and Charles
And
and
grinned
Mama,
at you?
yeah. Charles and Mama had been asking me what he looked like. He's big and fat and has no teeth. Don't ever your sins will find you out. He had gained weight, and he got off that bus and he grinned. And I stood there with my mouth open. And Lillian Connell was with me.
And what? And she introduced you, didn't
No,
she?
she hit me. And I
Bring you
said
back to
hello. So then, Mama was down in the Vincent's 5 and 10. So
Yeah.
we walked down to meet
Bonds
her.
and Fred.
Yeah.
Probably.
And I introduced Mama, and her mouth fell open, and I had to kick her. And Charles and Earl Jones and Billy Powell, they would come in. George would be sitting in the living room, and I'd be across the room. We'd be talking, and he would walk behind me. Both of them. They'd pretend they dropped something, and they'd say, "Snaggle to me," and I couldn't say a word. All three of them.
It was true.
George turned out to be a fine fella.
Yep, sure did.
Sure was.
Yep,
So,
sure did.
anyway, 7 children later.
Yep.
He should have been a seagoing sailor.
Every time he come to port, he had another child.
He wasn't going 275 days out every year.
That's right. He
Yeah.
was never aboard
Oh.
ship, but every time he went deep sea fishing,
He got sick.
Oh, he'd get sick. We've all had a wonderful life.
Sure have.
Been real good.
Yeah, well, poor folks didn't know it, but we've come a long ways. Come a long ways in
We,
a period of time.
But while we carried biscuits to school, everybody else was doing the same things.
That's right.
Some of them did. Some of them didn't because they didn't have it to bring.
Yeah.
Shirts,
Some of them.
And
did
shirts
not.
are made out of feed sacks.
yeah, oh yeah, it was
Smith's
so
best.
good when you could get.
Oh, I didn't have any
2
homemade
feeds.
underwear till I went in the Navy.
I remember Mama made mine, and I was at Pearl's house one time, and she was washing my underwear, and the other half sister Ruby was there, and they were washing my underpants, and it had 100 pounds right across.
Smith's best. Lied about 100.
They laughed at me because I wore pants that said
So
100.
they're dressed up and they probably found the same thing.
But seed sacks were the best of them. They didn't have tags on them. Didn't have anything in the labeling. They had paper tags in the liner, and you could get rid of them. But if we ever got seed sacks that seed came in, they were bleached white. They made good shirts and
Yeah,
clothes.
but
Yeah.
most of your women dresses are made out of printed feed
Yeah,
sacks.
Yeah.
it had taken 2 feed sacks to make me a dress. Mama would save them until we got 2 alike. And I'd
You were
get
that
me a
big?
dress. Yeah.
That was a 48 pound.
But it was good. We were blessed. I do remember Mama told me after we were, well, it was a long time after I was married, that Miss Louise Collins,
Yeah, Bushel.
she was it welfare? or-
Welfare, yes.
Yeah, she was welfare. And she told her that she was very proud of Mama's family. She says, y'all, you didn't have much, and every time, she called Mr. Todd sold a load of wood or anything, somebody reported him. And they would take out his $16 a month. He got a pension for $16. They call
Old
it
age pension, they
age
call it.
pension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over
And they-
65.
And they would deduct part of that money that they reported, and we never knew who reported. If he sold a load of moss,
Yeah.
somebody reported him. And Mama said that she told her that she used the 4 of us as examples for what can come from that.
Yes.
I thought that was very good.
Yes, it was.
Lord, I tell you what, he'd pull moss, he'd climb the biggest oak tree in this country.
Time
Full of
pines
moss.
too.
Throw it down, we had to pull the sticks out of it.
Yeah.
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 And then he'd load it on a mule and wagon, and the old moss gin was in Bushnell.
Yeah.
And then run that old mule and wagon over to Bushnell with that load of moss, and probably, what was it, $2 for the load or something? 2 or 3?
Yeah,
Yeah,
wasn't
wasn't
much.
much.
Wasn't
And
much.
if it was wet or had sticks, they knocked off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember one time with that clump of trees that's still back there, that big old clump back behind the Stewart Pond back there. He was throwing moss down, and we'd build a fire because it was cold. He'd build a fire for us before we went up the tree, and he threw a wad of moss down and had a bat in it, and we put that bat and threw him in the fire. And you could hear that thing popping and snapping, and Daddy wouldn't know what that was. When we told him he threw a bat in it, I thought he was going to come out of that tree. Oh man, how can you boys be so cruel? Boy, he really got upset over that.
Well, Eloise probably talked us into it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I remember one time we used to have an old haystack right out here where he used to put his hay. And I used to hide my cigarettes in that old haystack. And I was puffing away back there one day, and Mama looked out the window, and she thought the place was on fire. And I was back there puffing on that cigarette. And let me tell you something, that little woman puffed me for a while.
That's what
Mama had
happened.
to set the thing on fire.
That's what happened to Daddy's grapevine table he made.
You broke it up smoking the grapevine.
It wasn't just me, it was all the cousins and everybody. We'd all get us a stick and have a great smoke a grapevine.
It'd burn your tongue.
It
Yeah.
would.
Oh, it'd burn your tongue.
Oh,
For
it
drawing through that.
Yeah,
that
the Lord didn't set you on. I don't know why we did it. It certainly wasn't good.
We thought we were big.
Obviously, it didn't hurt you.
The mill houses would all come over. We'd all go up there and we'd sit around with the grapevine. That's the only grapevines we had around
Tell us
up
about
by the house.
Tell us about the time you and Lee smoked those cigars down in the back of somebody's car and everybody got sick, Charles.
Who was that?
I think so. I
You
don't
and
know
Lee,
me.
when back, I think I was going to Connie at the time or something there. I can't remember what it was.
Well, I jumped into somebody's car going down or coming out of Linden one time. Billy drove up behind the car, and I got out on the hood and got on their back bumpers crawling in the window because I thought it was some girls we knew. Well, I crawled right in the window on the old lady. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I jumped out.
Haven't been the same since.
It was a mother.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you letting me your car, you know.
Yeah,
I ran out of gas in it a few times.
We sure did. That particular morning, I got down here and got down about a quarter-mile down the road here and had to walk to Bevel's Corner to buy gas to get going. Connie's class was going to, had a field day, skip day that day, and we was going around Tampa someplace to go
Deep sea fishing.
deep sea fishing.
And Charles used all your gas up.
Well, the car wouldn't run 20 miles an hour after I put gas in. It had trashed the carburetor.
Uh-oh.
We went down there at 20 miles an hour. In fact, when we got to the boat, they were untying from the dock. Supposed to leave at 9, I guess, in the morning, and poor old Collins, they were still tied up, and he was seasick. Talk about George getting seasick.
He got seasick.
He was a big man on the campus.
I remember
Collins.
after wrecking Mama's car that time.
You and Billy?
Well, we actually...
Billy Martin, too.
Bobby Martin was in with us, too,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, to tell you what we was trying to do, we were trying to get some moonshine from that man over there.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there, so we was in a hurry to get back to Bevel's Corner trying to get somebody to buy us a jug of wine or something. But,
Now, we were not.
well, we wasn't buying it for ourselves.
I don't know.
Buying somebody else.
Bobby Martin put you up to it.
Yeah, Bobby did.
He was going to drink it.
But anyway, I turned that thing over on that curve out of Center Hill.
Bobby said it rolled 7 times.
And one hadn't killed us, but the good Lord was looking at us.
No
I guess.
seatbelts back in those days.
And
Bobby told me some time ago, he said, I raised my head up and looked over Charles with one move. He said, "Are you alive?"
Yeah, but he didn't want to come home.
but the insurance company gave Mama another old car to drive while we was having that one fixed up. And I remember she went up to visit you and George and you stationed in Charleston, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
She take the keys with her?
Yeah, she took the keys to that old Chevrolet out there. And, of course, Billy Powell and I hot wired that thing. We drove it all over the country, too. So she didn't ever know we was in that thing.
Well,
And the oldest way I used to get gas to get in that old, I'd take the plug out of her car, a gas tank, drain me a gallon of gas out and put it in mine.
terrible.
Yeah.
I remember that one old car you bought. You bought from Melvin Carlton.
Oh, he
used
did.
a
First one
used
ever
car
on.
lot down the road here. And Mama drove me to church one Sunday. She'd come in church, and you could hear it at the church when she cranked it up here at the house. You knew when she was coming. It had no muffler.
No, it was just it had a muffler, it just had a knock in the engine.
And she come sit down in church. And after a bit, I said, "Mama, what's wrong?" I had to drive that car, Charles was. And she wasn't long enough to reach all the gears. I remember she was just a puppet.
Shoot, that thing cost me every bit of $75. That was a fine automobile. Donald and somebody worked on the engine one time. We were going quite in the knockoff in it, but I think he got a lot louder after that.
Yeah, it probably was.
That was an old Dodge, I think it was.
Yeah.
But Charles never had any money.
Always broke.
Always broke. One time he lost his wallet. Well, he was just so upset because he lost his wallet.
With all his money.
I said, how much money? No, I don't have any money in it, but I have other stuff I want. Well, I happened to find his wallet.
Took the money out.
Just take the money out of it.
I should have, because he kept getting money from me.
Yeah.
If you ever went any place to do anything at all, he was always broke. He never did have any money. Always had to pay his share as well. We'd go to a restaurant. I don't have any money. Go get a hamburger or something. And Charles was broke. I don't have any money. You couldn't sit there and eat a hamburger by yourself.
You did most of the time.
Cut in half.
Talk about one of the exciting things. I don't remember if y'all remember it. I do. I almost crawled under the pew. We were out in Mount Zion, had that little wooden church at that time, and the Ku Klux Klan
Oh,
were.
I remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember
The
that.
Ku Klux Klan were the prominent around here at that time, and they
Night service.
yeah, and if anyone lived out of wedlock or carried on married people, boy, I tell you what, they'd correct them too. They had ways of doing that. But we were sitting there at the evening service, and here came these, I think about 6 of them.
They were covered in white.
All white sheets and the hoods over there. Their face was showing, but they had no pointed hats on, and they came to give an offering to the church. I don't know why they would have accepted it, but they did. $100 or $2 or something. Said that we have some funds and we want to share it with your church, and they gave the offering and turned around and went out and left.
Once they taken somebody out once.
I didn't remember that. I remember they were going to bring an offering to the church.
Yeah.
And all the kids run to the pews.
The
There was
tape's
this-
almost full. What do you want to end with?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Well, it's been a good ride.
We've been very, very fortunate.
successful.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have.
We've been blessed many ways.
Certainly have.
And one of our greatest heritage is the Christian background that they instilled in us, and we'll forever be thankful for that. I didn't always want to go to Sunday school, church, but
You went.
we were to hear about the being drugged. We were drugged too. We were drugged to church.
I remember embarrassing Jimmy when he was a senior in high school. He'd be sitting out on the lawn at lunchtime with these girls.
Oh, wait a minute, Nell's here.
And, and I'd go over and ask him for a nickel to buy an ice cream push-up, and he'd never tell me no because he would know he was real nice.
Big spender there, yeah.
He would always give me a nickel.
Yeah, big spender.
I lost that girl because we didn't have any transportation at that time, and well, Daddy had a car, but he wouldn't let me have it. I don't know if I even had driver's license. Francis Walker, he lived down below Center Hill, on that road back to Webster, and Catherine Galloway and we, the 3 of us, set out to eat lunch together. And Frances was a sweet girl, but she finally got tired of me never coming to see her because I didn't have a way to get over to see her or take her in place, and she found somebody else.
See how lucky you are? Where's when Nell came along? Talking about that old car, Daddy would never let you have it. You two beat it all to pieces.
Yeah, it was mode transportation.
Yeah, Daddy said, "There's a mule. Hook up the wagon." I wasn't going courting a mule and a
Well,
wagon.
it's pretty common on Friday night to have when in school, to have a party someplace, Center Hill or Webster, and
Corey Smith had them for us.
you just
She
walk
was the
down,
ugliest
walk
woman
back.
in the world.
Yeah.
It was scary.
She was.
Well, they had to put the,
She looked at the baboon when her mother was pregnant or something, didn't she? I mean, made her look ugly or something. Is that what they said?
She saw a squashed frog.
Dad used to say, had to put a wash tub over her before the moon would come up.
Yeah, we were well blessed.
But you know, she owned a lot of land in Sumter County.
Yeah, she was well off.
Well, J.C. Getson was the money behind it.
Yeah.
Used his name, tax certificate. Used her name on the tax certificate.
I remember when Big George was first transferred to New York, and the kids and I lived in Center Hill that one school term. And I was expecting Kenny, and she came and told me she would stay with the kids while I went to the hospital. Well, I knew that wasn't going to happen. She came one night. The kids were scared to death of her because she had one eye up here and the other eye was down here, and her hair was really bad, and she had a huge mouth, and she was big. But
she was ugly.
She came one evening, and I was having pains, and I kept thinking, well, we've got to go home. I got to call Mama.
Yeah.
She was going to take me to the hospital, but she finally, it was getting dark. She said, well, I better go now. You be sure and call me, and I didn't tell her.
Yes, ma'am. You get out of here, and I'm going to call Big Mama.
I called Mama. So.
That 14 party line phone.
Yeah. She was a good-hearted person.
Oh, yes, yes.
She loved to do something for kids, but kids sure didn't appreciate it.
Yep, it is. All right, you filled up the tape.
Good.
Wait,
Up the tape.
I think, yeah, you did.
You want to talk longer?
You want to talk some more?
When do we eat?
I think I don't have anything to eat.
What do you mean? You mean we came over here for nothing?
Reverted back to the beginning.
About four we used to be. I'm back there.
I've got to go look see if those heifers still in the pit.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I promised
Honey,
to take
talk
these
about
girls
being
back to
poor.
back and show them the calves too.
We might have been poor, but I don't never remember going hungry.
No.
Never none.
Poor folk didn't know it.
No,
We just had another chicken.
we had, well, yeah.
Chick couldn't kill all of them because they had to have the eggs.
Used to have an old buddy from Louisiana, and he'd always tell you, be sure, he died, dead now, but he says, be sure and look me up if you ever get back to Lake Charles. I says, well, how are we going to, Speedy Newell, the old boy's from Eustis. He says, married a girl, Cajun girl, New Orleans, from Lake Charles. I says, well, how do we find your house when we get back to Lake Charles? He says, you know the courthouse, exactly where that's from? Yeah, he says, well, I'm right over in back of that. And then over his shoulder, he'd say, about 15 miles down the bay. And that was it. We have terminated the conversation.
I promised to take the girls to back this afternoon. You wonder if you want to go with you, sit with them?
Did you want to get what? Oh, you did take the picture, didn't you?